an opportunity for us to enjoy the beauty and the artistry of God. God is saying how beautifully we are. I mean, and I know we have these very large, we have these mega churches down here in Atlanta, down here in this area, and they tell you, turn to somebody, look at them and say, when God made you, he was just showing off, right? But I'm not going to ask you to do that. You do that. You've heard that enough. But that's the point. The point is that God has made your forms, your colors, your shapes, and they're all beautiful. And we just have to learn how to see the universal beauty in all of us as humanity. None of us are of our own making. None of us are of our own making. God, Allah, has made us as we are, and He knew exactly what He was doing. I want to read a story, and this story is a part of a research that happened, and it connects with exactly that and one other matter. That verse that I cited from the Quran and one other matter that ties in this whole issue of our learning how to be together. One part of it is called the contact hypothesis. The contact hypothesis, I'll tell you more about it as we continue, but the contact hypothesis from social science is the very meaning of what's intended by the statement li ta'arrafu. Li ta'arrafu. Li ta'arrafu is for the purpose of you getting to know each other, for the purpose of you recognizing each other, for the purpose of you learning from each other. That's what the differences are for. You do understand that you can only learn by difference. You can only learn by, if things are always the same, there's no way to learn anything different. You get knowledge from the distinction. You get knowledge from the difference. Li ta'arrafu will connect us with this contact hypothesis, and it all occurs in one story. The second and a very important principle related to what it is that we are here and acknowledging, but we want to acknowledge it not only on the heart level, we want to acknowledge it on the brain level as well. Not only emotionally, but we want to acknowledge it cognitively as well. And it is the need for a superordinate goal. A superordinate goal. And the superordinate goal sits with the principle in Al-Islam of another primary, what I might even call a master verse in the Quran, where it says, Ya ayyuhan nasu.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
وَلْتَكُمْ subhanallah. وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٍ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٍ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. In fact, Yaqub, when you were mentioning, I think one of your citations was about the healing of the earth, right? Please give me that phrasing again in the
Hebrew.
Yes.
The repair of the earth.
The repair of the earth. Tekun Eloham. That was really, and so the ha olam. Ha olam. Olam is the earth. Right? Tekun is the repair. Right? So the healing of the earth. So actually what came, those words kind of flitted through my mind as I was setting up to recite the Arabic verse, and the Semitic entanglement happened right there, right? So the tekun is healing of the earth. Wal tekum, we say, wal tekum minkum ummatan yad'una ila al-khayr, and then tekun ha olam kind of weaves in there, right? Because when it says, let there arise out of you a civilization, a society, a culture, an ummah, a community that enjoys what is right, forbids what is wrong, calls to all that is good. My Christian brothers and sisters, they say, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. This is really the same aspiration. Our friend and brother, God rest his soul, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and the beloved community. The beloved community for us in Al-Islam, our Ummah, it really, in principle, in value, in objective, means the same thing. So in this case, the superordinate goal is found in that call of God to us to let there arise out of you one community, one Ummah, one society, one civilization, not in the spirit of groupthink or any other kind of cultish matter, but upon the basis of your unity, upon the basis of your diversity, upon the basis of your uniqueness, but like a beautiful bouquet of flowers, or like the cornucopia that we think about all the time in the Thanksgiving period, where every different vegetable and fruit and what have you is put on the table for the benefit of all mankind. That's how the world is supposed to be. Well, here's where this context hypothesis, the hypothesis, you have to have an experiment in order to find out whether your theory is believable or actionable or valuable at all. Well, this was a situation in 1954 where this was first tested. In 1954, 22 11-year-old Protestant boys from Oklahoma City of similar middle-class backgrounds, unacquainted with each other and carefully screened for psychological stability, they boarded 2 buses bound for a 200-acre Boy Scouts of America summer camp near Robbers Cave State Park in Oklahoma. The experiment's designer, who was Muzaffar Sharif, a Turkish-born Harvard graduate, later credited with founding the discipline of social psychology, pretended to be the janitor throughout the experiment. The boys did not know that they were about to be a part of one of the most fascinating and beloved psychological studies of group behavior of all time. The boys were divided into 2 groups. Then, for the first several days, the camp counselors, who were actually teen psychologists, along with Sharif's wife, they encouraged them to engage in activities to solidify the bond between members of their own separate groups. They were told to choose a name for themselves, create a flag for themselves, designate places in the camp as theirs, and then to write their own songs, and also to design behaviors and particular modes of practice that were exclusively for them. Now, each group was assigned to separate living quarters, far apart from the other, and at no point during this initial period was either group allowed to meet or interact with any members of the other group. In the next phase of the study, Sharif and his colleagues engineered situations designed to be highly competitive and frustrating in order to deliberately bring the 2 groups into conflict. They announced a general tournament of sports and other competitive games with trophies and medals and 11 4-blade Swiss Army knives as the highest prize for the winning team. Finally, after a day spent practicing, both groups laid eyes on the other team, who by this time were seen purely and only as the enemy. Over the 4 days, this is just 4 days, over the 4 days of competition, the staff manipulated the scorecard so that the scores remained neck and neck and ensured that both teams were constantly made aware of the closeness of the race. Good sportsmanship gave way to name-calling, all forms of verbal abuse, and even refusal of any boy to eat in the same food hall when a member of the other group was present. After a while, the experimenters didn't have to instigate any animosity between the groups. One night, the Rattlers, which was the chosen name of one of the groups, decked themselves out in commando style and raided the Eagles, the other group. They raided their cabin, turned their beds over, ripped up their mosquito nets, and then the Eagles retaliated by arming themselves with sticks and bats, and they threw all the Rattlers' belongings in one heap in the center of the cabin. Each team destroyed the other team's flag. On the day the Eagles won the tournament, the Rattlers raided the Eagles' cabin and stole the prize knives. The growing animosity ended in a fierce fistfight that the counselors had to break up. Now, having escalated such fierce animosity and prejudice between the groups, Sharif then began to experiment with activities to encourage the groups to commingle. However, no amount of jolly, kumbaya, let's get together and know each other evenings, movie nights, or festivities for the 4th of July seemed to lessen the tension. Sharif then created a series of crises in the camp. Crises that could not be solved except by the utilization of all the resources of both groups. Number 1. After the drinking water supply dried up, the boys discovered there was a large sack stuffed into the outlet faucet of the water reservoir, so both groups had to work together to figure out how to clear it. Secondly, the Rattlers and the Eagles were also enlisted to pull a rope tied in order to clear a partly cut-through tree that may have posed a danger to the camp. And then the final crisis was they had to work together to help a truck which was carrying food for both groups that had gotten stuck in a ditch. The resolution was this: once the water began flowing again, the rattlers allowed the eagles to drink first from the fountain, because the eagles hadn't brought their canteens and they were thirsty. After the groups worked together to finance a movie, the boys began eating together in the mess hall, rattlers freely mixing with eagles. On the final day of the camp, the boys unanimously voted to travel together on one bus. The rattlers and the eagles sat together, their arms draped over each other. At one stop on the way, the leader of the rattlers spent the $5 he had won in a beanbag toss on malted milk for all 22 boys. The Sharif study is considered to be the test of the contact hypothesis, which was devised by Gordon Allport that same year. He himself was a towering figure in psychology and one of the founders of personality psychology. Allport believed that managed contact between members of different groups is the best means of reducing prejudice. His theory were those that influenced the Supreme Court in its landmark decision ending school desegregation, Brown versus Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas. The contact hypothesis has been tested in a variety of settings and has been found to be a powerful tool to lessen discrimination among many groups: sports teams, management teams, schools with new members, and even in prisons. In 2006, a review of 525 such studies of this contact hypothesis in action confirmed that contact between different groups of any variety successfully reduces intergroup prejudice and increases cooperation, particularly when 4 specific conditions are met. And here are the 4 conditions. Understand that something was said about the origins, the time of the birth of our particular ways of life. Al-Islam is called Fitratullahi lati fatara nas in the Quran. Fitratullahi lati fatara nas. It is the religion of the origin. It is the religion of the origin. It also means that it is the religion of nature. It is the religion of nature. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that the knowledge is the lost property of the believer, and wherever they find it, they have more of a right to it. The idea in the Imam, rahimahullah, who is the essential source and drive for our being here this night, that he says the correct interpretation of the physical creation, or true science, is the correct interpretation of the physical creation. If you understand that what scientific research is a pursuit to the internal nature of whatever it is that's being discovered, whatever is being observed, whatever is being researched. So the research here is a research on human nature. It's a research on human nature. What is the nature of humanity? How do we behave on a certain circumstance? What is predictably the way that a human being would behave faced with this circumstance and that circumstance? And when they tell you that they have taken 525 such research studies, and they've studied the 525 research studies, that's called meta-research. It's not just research, that's research on research. And the research on research has led to the conclusion that they enshrined it as a theory to say that is an accurate description of what human nature is. And in order to get this kind of result from any group of human beings, because this is a demonstration of the nature of a human being, then wherever you find a human being, it doesn't matter whether they're Korean or they're Asian or Iranian or whether they're Arab or whether they're African or European or Polynesian, they're human beings. And as human beings, you can expect that they will respond in the same way when they're faced with these types of circumstances. So it's critical to understand they're saying all you need to have are these 4 things when you have animosity going on between a group of people who believe that they have differences because they have chosen a different name, a different flag, a different geography, different songs, different particular behaviors that they call their own, and everybody's in their own little well, thinking that their well is the ocean. It's like, I love it. Plato, I believe either it's Plato or Socrates' cave. It says it's the same message. Everybody thinks that where they are is where the whole world is. But it says wherever you find those human beings, and they're at odds with each other, then the science is saying all you need to do is get these 4 things in place. Get that consciousness to embrace these 4 values. Create a situation that endorses or brings forth these four phenomena, or these four factors. Number one is equal group status in the situation. Equal group status in the situation. That is, you have to foster and have it accepted and embraced that we are equal. That we are equal. That's one piece that has to be put in place. But the second thing is intergroup cooperation. There has to be circumstances where we cooperate with each other, as was said, with the bag in the water and the tree limb and the truck. These crises put them in a situation where they all had to work together. So when you have this interaction between the groups, you have out of that the second phenomenon necessary, or the second factor necessary in order to bring about this kind of reduction of hostilities. The third thing was the support of authority figures. The support of authority figures. That is, the people who are in authority have to be endorsing the best way, endorsing the proper way, endorsing the good way, endorsing the higher value. When the authorities are fostering the prejudice, when the authorities are fostering the animosity, fostering the hostility, that's when we have problems. We're here in the South. The whole history is peppered with and told in the fact that when the authority, when the law, when those people that were in charge were promoting and reinforcing, and the leaders of the division and the leaders of the statements of inequality, that's when things were worse. But as soon as people in positions of authority begin to change their attitude and endorse positions of equality, that's when we begin to see life become a better place for everybody who is involved in the hostility. So you have to have the support of authority figures. And finally, we come to that superordinate goal. And the most important aspect of these four is having a common and overarching goal. And is this that the psychologists call a superordinate goal. A goal achieved only by strong cooperative teamwork. Engaging in sharing and teamwork tends to transcend differences because it emphasizes the very heart of humanity. We are all in this together. And if we're all in this together, then we're no longer competing for scarce resources. Imam Muhammad rahimahullah, he said that the essence of justice itself can be seen in the fact that if we would recognize that God is the one who created everything. He created everything. Everything. Sun, moon, star, universe, everything that we see. And he gave it to all of us as an inheritance equally. This is God's creation. And he gave this creation to all of us equally. So we share in this quote-unquote human ownership, if you would, of this universe. So when individuals begin to take and make this mine of this universal inheritance, that's a part of the essence of our problem. That's why the Quran says, don't forget your share of the material. And that goes both ways. When 2% of the population owns 40% of the world's resources, something wrong with that picture. Right? So all I'll do to abbreviate my presence here now, all I'd like to do is just invite all of us from our various faith positions to, as you think about that, given that it is true and it's sound, and we say that it is, that this contact hypothesis and this need for these four features to be in place in order to reduce this hostility, equality, intergroup cooperation, the support of authority for everyone's equality and everyone's rights. You see, the beautiful thing about, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, some of us may be surprised to know that everybody hasn't signed on to that. But it's a very, very important document. But the point is, when the authorities sign on to that, that's a very, very important thing. And also, the most important, the superordinate goal, I think that it would be very useful for us to look into our scriptures, look into our philosophies, look into our approaches to life, and see out of those sources, which of them support these four, and we can create our own interfaith plank of what might you call them? Let's just call it doxology so we can get done. where I have from my Sikh brothers, and I have from my Buddhist, and from my Hindu, and from my Catholic, and from my Protestant, I have from everyone their ideas that say this is what my scripture says about our equality. This is what my scripture says about our cooperation. This is what my scripture says about the role of the authority and its responsibility to endorse and reinforce the equality among all of us. This is what my scripture, this is what my philosophy, this is what my ideology says about the superordinate goal that we all can subscribe to. And imagine seeing all those in one book, in one pamphlet, in one place, and that becomes the thing that we share in terms of interfaith, where whenever we look around, then the Sikh can look in and he can find where what he has correlates with what the Muslim has, and the Muslim can look in and see what he has correlates with what the Buddhist has, and the Buddhist can say where he has correlates with what the Hindu says, and then that will help us begin to see our essential equality. We all have it on our lips that we're all human beings. Now we need to go further in order to know, okay, therefore, what is our practice? When we have circumstances like 911, circumstances like this, then if you understand the contact hypothesis, if you understand the reality of that science of human nature, that's not an opportunity for division. That's an opportunity for us in crisis to work together. And in order for us to become more human, in order for us to become more cooperative, in order for us to become more successful as a species. So we have to learn now to look more at the crises in our locations as opportunities to improve the situation, because it's an opening that will only come vis-a-vis a crisis. So crisis shouldn't be things that tear us apart. Crisis should be things that bring us together. And I think that just might be why God sometimes allows crisis, heart-rending crisis to happen in our lives. Maybe he's trying to tell us something, and we just have to ask ourselves, are we listening? Okay? So I conclude with a statement from my teacher, Imam Muhammad, radiyallahu anhu. In 1977, in an acceptance speech, and it was emblazoned on the medallion that his brother, Herbert, may Allah be pleased with him, forgive me, said, who gave this in honor of Imam Muhammad. And it's a universal statement. It's a statement of universal brotherhood. And I'll just read it directly and conclude. The Imam, in thanking the individuals who embraced him while he was there, this statement is what's emblazoned on that medallion. It says, I thank you, not as a Muslim, in the sense that the world sees Muslims, nor as a Christian or a Jew or as a member of any religious denomination. We all have so much in common that is interchangeable and interrelated that I find it better to ignore religious labels and to deal only with the person's true beliefs. Therefore, I join with you as one who believes in an almighty creator of the heavens and the earth. For all of us have the right to speak and feel comfortable among people anywhere on earth. We are all of one creation, and God unites us in spite of artificial divisions of race, color, and natural origin. We are united by the most powerful bond of all, our common human origin. The real issues that concern us and affect our social and economic destiny and the destiny of our children's children are vital to all and are more profound than any ideological differences that we may have. Our enemy is not the free world or the communist world or Christianity or Judaism or any other religion. It is ignorance, racism, oppression, greed, and corruption. To eliminate these enemies, we must remake the world and establish truth, justice, opportunity, and compassion for all people. I have wholeheartedly accepted this mission with the guidance of Allah. Please join me and help unite and reconstruct our American lives. God's peace be on you. Assalamu alaikum.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.